Alright, so in this video we're focusing on multiplying rational expressions. So let's go ahead and get started with an example. Pretty much the most important thing to remember is when you're multiplying rational expressions is first, you probably want to try to cancel anything out that you can. That might require some factoring like we did earlier. Or if you can't factor, that's when you need to move on and just multiply straight across. So I'm going to start off by trying to look and see if I can cancel out anything at all here in example 13. Try to rewrite this problem as cleanly as possible. I'm going to rewrite the original problem a little bit bigger so that we can see it better. So I have 5x squared y over 2x y cubed, and this is times 6x cubed y squared all over 10y. Okay, I'm going to take one fraction at a time, and then I'm also going to take one type of number at a time. For instance, I'm going to start off with 5 divided by 2. Nothing happens there, so the first fraction is just going to stay 5 over 2. Okay? Now I'm going to look at my x's, and this goes back to laws of exponents, which is a previous class. We don't discuss laws of exponents at all in this class. So if you need help with it, I'm happy to help you, but I'm not going to devote a video or class time to something that you should already know. So when you divide the same base, you're supposed to subtract the power. So I'm going to say 2 minus 1, which is 1. So I have x to the first power. Again, I'm dividing the same base with the y's. When I do that, I subtract the power. So I have y to the first minus 3. So 1 minus 3 is negative 2. You always start in the top. Okay, now let's go ahead to the second fraction. 6 over 10, I could probably clean that up since they're both even numbers. I'm going to just use my calculator to do quick scratch work. If you can do it in your head like I can, that's fine. If not, don't let your ego get in the way. Take a few extra seconds and get a decimal, turn it back into a fraction. Take the few extra seconds to do it with the calculator. So that fraction becomes 3 over 5. Alright, again, I'm going to go to x's. There's no x's to cancel out or do any of the laws of exponents with, so I'm just going to keep x cubed. And finally, I'm going to go to y. Notice I'm dividing the same base, y squared over y. When I divide the same base, subtract the power. So 2 minus 1 is 1. Always start in the top. Now I want to keep cleaning up as much as I can. In particular, I'm not happy with y to the negative power on top. This power is negative, so this y is not happy where he's living. So let's just flip him, bring him down. So this first fraction now becomes 5x to the first over 2y squared. The second fraction, nothing else can be done, so it's going to stay the same. So 3x cubed y to the first all over 5. Now we're ready to multiply these rational expressions together. So we had to do a lot of scratch work before we could even multiply. But that scratch work helped clean it up a little bit. Sometimes it's going to clean it up a lot. Sometimes, like in this problem, it's only cleaning it up a little bit. But some is better than none. All right, again, I'm just going to multiply straight across. So that means tops with tops, bottoms with bottoms. So I'm going to say 5 times 3, which is 15. X to the first times x cubed, which is x to the fourth. And then there's nothing times y, so I'm just going to keep the y there, so y to the first. Alright, now on bottom, 2 times 5 is 10. On bottom, there's nothing to multiply with the y, so he just comes along for the ride, so y squared on bottom. Now, I could circle this and say I'm done, but I wouldn't get full credit because I need to go back now and try to clean up some more. For instance, 15 divided by 10 will reduce. Okay, so again, they're both divisible by 5, so you could say 3 halves, or if you need to, use your calculator. There's no x on the bottom here, so nothing can be done with that x to the 4, so it's just going to come along for the ride. But on y's, I have y on top, y on bottom. I'm dividing by the same base, so subtract the powers. 1 minus 2 is negative 1. You always start up top. But that y to the negative first, he's not happy up top, so we're going to flip him to the bottom. So our final answer is 3x to the fourth over 2y to the first. Nothing else can be done, so that's our final answer. A little bit more complicated now. Again, like we did in the previous problem, we're going to simplify and cancel anything out where we can. However, to cancel stuff out, since it is more complicated, we're going to have to factor first. I want to take care of the fraction on the left first. So with that fraction on the left, I'm just going to make myself a note. It's the left fraction. So this scratch word, I suggest you be organized, okay? So left fraction is what I'm working with. In the left fraction, I'm going to do the top in blue. So let's start with that, 4x minus 4x squared. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and change the order of this. I like x squared to go up front, so it's going to be negative 4x squared plus 4x. Okay, so you can always change the order of it. Just be careful that 4x is positive in the problem, so it has to stay positive. Same idea. Negative 4x squared is negative in the problem, so it has to stay negative if you change the order. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and factor. What I'm looking for is a GCF, greatest common factor, that can come out. So they both have 4, so that 4 can definitely come out. They both have x, so x can come out. So I have negative 4x times. Now, to figure out what goes in here, we're saying what times negative 4x will give me negative 4x squared? Well, that's x. What times negative 4x will give me positive 4x? Well, that's a negative 1. Because negative and negative is a positive. All right? So the top is factored completely. Now let's look at the bottom. Again, I'm going to do bottom in green. I have x squared plus 2x minus 3. I want to factor this. I have 3 pieces, so I'm going to try bottoms up. I'm looking for factors of negative 3 to add up to positive 2. So let's see. I'm going to try x plus 3 and x minus 1. I'm going to double check these two numbers by first multiplying. Positive 3 and negative 1 is negative 3, so that works. And then I'm going to double check it by adding these two numbers. Positive 3 and negative 1 is positive 2. So these are the two numbers I need, so I factored both. I factored the left fraction. Now moving on to the right fraction. Moving on to the right fraction again, I'm just going to say right fraction so that I can keep my scratch work organized. On top, I'm going to do it in blue. I have x squared plus x minus 6. And again, I have 3 pieces, so I'm going to try to use bottoms up method. If I can't, I'm going to try to find factors of negative 6 that add up to positive 1. So I'm going to say x plus 3 and x minus 2. Let's try to first do our double check. We're going to first multiply positive 3 and negative 2 together. That is negative 6. And then double check it by adding positive 3 and negative 2, which is positive 1. Okay, so these are my 2 factors. That's good. So the bottom of that fraction, right fraction, is taken care of. And 4x is on the bottom. Nothing can be done with that. So we're actually done with all our scratch work. So now using our scratch work, I can rewrite my problem, the left fraction again. It became negative 4x times x minus 1 on top. On bottom, I had x plus 3 times x minus 1 times our right fraction on top. It was x plus 3 times x minus 2. And on bottom, we just had 4x. Okay, so what I want to do first is cancel out wherever I can. So automatically I see x minus 1, x minus 1. Those match up perfectly. So those two are going to cancel out. All right, now in this second fraction I don't see anything that cancels out, so I'm temporarily done canceling things out. So now I want to start multiplying. Remember, we multiply straight across. Tip, really important tip. Do not do FOIL or the box. Okay, we just spent a lot of scratch work undoing, factoring these things. So we don't want to do FOIL or the box yet. We're going to do that at the very end. So I want to multiply straight across. I have negative 4x times x plus 3 times x minus 2. On bottom, I'm going to have x plus 3 times 4x. Okay, so I've multiplied. Everything is sitting side by side, so when things are sitting side by side, that means multiplication. So technically I have multiplied. I just haven't multiplied all the way. The reason why I haven't multiplied all the way is because I want to take a quick pause and see, will anything now factor out, make my life a little bit easier. Again, I'm looking for the exact same piece, identical pieces on top and bottom. Well, x plus 3 and x plus 3, those are identical, so they're going to cancel out. Also, 4x and 4x will cancel out. However, the negative 1 does not cancel out. So that's still going to be up top. So now we can rewrite our problem. But before we do that, I canceled out everything on the bottom, so on bottom there's still a 1 as a placeholder. Do not put a 0. If everything cancels out on the bottom or the top, in this case the bottom, use a 1 as a placeholder. So I have negative x minus 2 inside parentheses all over 1. But we know anything over 1 is itself, so really this problem just becomes negative x minus 2. Okay, that's our final answer. You could write it that way. We simplify it all the way down. Or you could distribute this negative and say negative x plus 2. Either way is fine. So here there was a lot of factoring and scratch work involved, but by factoring in advance, we were able to cancel things out very nicely and get our final answer into as low as possible form. So be sure you do that. Also, be sure you're organized with your scratch work. Okay, a little bit more complicated now. So here I have a fraction times a polynomial. Before you freak out, like, well, how do we do that? Because all we know how to do right now is a fraction times a fraction. Let's make this guy a fraction. Any polynomial can be made a fraction by putting a 1 on the bottom. So really our original problem is saying our fraction on the left times our fraction on the right. Now, I'm going to do my scratch work again. Okay, so for the right fraction, remember our process is we always try to factor first, that way hopefully we can cancel some stuff out. So in the first fraction on top, x plus 3, nothing can really happen, so it's going to stay x plus 3. So on the bottom, I'm going to try to factor that, 8x cubed minus 1. Well, before I do anything, my factoring pattern, like I saw in the previous videos, I have 2 pieces, minus in the middle, so that means difference, and then cubes, so I have difference of 2 cubes. And I remember that the pattern for difference of 2 cubes is a cubed minus b cubed, which is where we're at, and that's equal to a minus b times a squared plus ab plus b squared. Okay, again, you've got to know these patterns. It's going to make life a lot easier for you. If you don't, these problems will be very, very difficult. All right, so that means a cubed matches up with 8x cubed, so that means a, just regular a, is going to be 2x. The reason why I got 2 is because the cube root of 8 is 2, and then cube root and cube is going to cancel out, so 2x. All right, the cube root of 1 is 1, so that means b is 1, and now I'm ready to plug in. Everywhere I see an a, I'm going to put in a 2x. Everywhere I see a b, I'm going to put in a 1. All right, so we have 2x minus 1 times a squared. So if I square this, I have, well, 2 squared is 4, x squared is x squared. All right, so that's 4x squared plus ab. When I have 2 letters side by side, that means to multiply. So I'm going to say 2x times 1, which is 2x. And then finally, for the last piece, I have b squared. So regular b was 1, so I'm saying b squared, so 1 squared, which is 1. So plus 1. All right, so the bottom of my right, or sorry, this should say left fraction. The bottom of my left fraction will factor into this. Now, let's look at the right fraction. Again, be organized with your scratch work. So the right fraction, on top, I have 4x squared plus 2x plus 1. So I'm going to do that in blue. Now I'm going to try to factor that. Here I have 3 pieces, so I'm going to try the bottoms up method, the very first step of the bottoms up method. If the first number is not 1, you multiply the first and last numbers together. So x squared plus 2x, remember the middle always says the same, plus 4. Again, 4 times 1 is 4. Now it looks very easy, like we've done in the past, so we're looking for factors of 4. That'll add up to positive 2. All right, so I'm thinking x plus 2 and x plus 2. I want to try these two, so my very first check is to multiply positive 2 and positive 2, which is positive 4, so that works. And then I'm going to double check it by adding positive 2 to positive 2, which is not positive 2. So, that doesn't work. So that doesn't work at all. So what else could we try? All right, well, we could try. We could try, let's see, 1 and 4. All right, so I have x plus 1 and x plus 4. Again, let's do our double check. 1 times 4 is positive 4, so that works, but do our double check. 1 plus 4 is not positive 2. There's no other factors of 4, so I'm actually not able to factor the top, so the top is prime. The top is prime, that means I cannot rewrite it. Okay, well, no big deal. So what I want to do now is start rewriting my problem. So my left fraction, the top just stayed the same. But on the bottom, we rewrote it as 2x minus 1 times 4x squared plus 2x plus 1. That's all my left fraction. Times my original right fraction. Again, nothing could be done. We tried, but no go. So we have 4x squared on top plus 2x plus 1 all over 1. All right, now we're ready to start multiplying straight across, but before we do that, we want to double check each individual fraction, see if anything will cancel out. In the left fraction, nothing cancels. In the right fraction, nothing cancels. So we just move on to the next step, which is multiply straight across. Again, do not multiply the pieces together. We're just going to set pieces side by side to represent multiplication. So at the top, I'm going to have x plus 3. Be sure you put your pieces in parentheses, though. That's important. Times 4x squared plus 2x plus 1. So again, I have parentheses beside parentheses, which indicates multiplication. So technically, I've done my multiplication up top. Now multiply straight across for the bottom. Again, just parentheses beside parentheses. And we're multiplying by 1, so I'm going to just set that 1 outside. All right, so now I'm going to go back and try to cancel things out by looking for identical pieces on top and bottom. Okay, obviously I have 4x squared plus 2x plus 1 on top and bottom, so this piece and this piece will cancel out because they're identical, but nothing else will cancel out. So my problem now becomes x plus 3 on top. On bottom, I have 1 times 2x minus 1. On bottom, that's just distributive property, so you could say x plus 3 stays on top, and then 2x minus 1 stays on bottom. That's as much as you can do, so final answer. Again, be very organized with your scratch work. That's the key to success with these types of problems. Also, look for identical pieces, top and bottom, cancel out where you can. And that's it for this video. Multiplying is not that hard. Lots of scratch work, but if you stick with it, you can get it.